Live from the Outsider Studios at Granite Ridge Christian Camp in the beautiful state of Creston, I'm Joe Tarosian, and this is RamView without the sounds that we usually start the show with. This edition of RamView is brought to you by Kistler Law Firm. Injured in an auto accident, need help, got questions, call Kistler Law at 661-206-6990. And check out KistlerLawFirm.com. Kistler Law, they've been fighting for you since 92. And by Temple City Auto Repair. Having some auto issues? Get yourself some John and Henry at TempleCityAutoRepair.com. And of course, where I'm located today at Granite Ridge Christian Camp, a place where your life can change. Okay, so it is great to be here. I am on the road right now with one of our sponsors, Granite Ridge Christian Camp. And I am working youth camp this week, but we figured out a way that I can get my broadcast in because now that camp has started, we don't want to miss anything. So the one thing we are making an addition on here or an addendum to is it will be a shorter show and some of the bells and whistles won't be there, but it is important. We want to thank all the new listeners that have clicked in and started liking us and subscribing. And I've been really poor about asking you to like and subscribe. So I'm going to ask you now, like and subscribe. And thank you for all the hits and all the interaction on all the various sites. We really, really appreciate it as we build our footprint here. Also, be sure to check us out on Spotify, as that is one of our places where we've struggled the most. If we can get a little more help there, we would appreciate that as well. Okay, let's just dive into it. I was at Rams camp on Saturday. I was there with my brother, and we checked it out. It was a cool venue, everything. And thank goodness they do it in the OC because even though it was warm, it wasn't hot. And then there was that nice breeze at the end of the day. But what we didn't know when we were there, as we were on the lookout for, was Sony Michel retired. His latest stint with the Rams didn't go very long. And so Sony Michel called it a career. And so he's out there. He's gone. And the one thing I will, before we get into Royce Freeman, is about Sony Michel, is that there's something about it I really liked. You know, he came in, he played for about 5 seasons, got a ring, got 2 rings. And to me, it feels like he's using football before football can use him. And that's one of the things we always try to pass on to the young people that we covered when I was covering high school football and even some JC stuff, is you always wanted the students to use football to get a little bit of education paid for, or a lot of education paid for, use it to learn things, use it to become a leader, use it to understand discipline. And if it's the nice things work out and you play high-end football, great. But the idea was use football before football can use you. And what happens far too often with so many athletes and players is football uses them and then they're kicked to the side of the road. And if you need any help with that, go back and just look at some of the names and drafts from 2018, 2017, 2019, 2020, 2015, 2014, big names that came out. They played 3 years and it just didn't happen for him. In fact, there was another injury today. We don't know how extensive it was for another great player, or who we thought was going to be a great player, and now his career seems like it is in jeopardy. But before we get on, let's talk about Royce Freeman. The Rams signed him pretty fast. He's 6 foot 238, and I knew I couldn't place it, and then finally it dawned on me he was the same dude in Eugene back in the day. I had completely forgot about him. That went way off my radar. He's the Ducks' career rushing leader. He had 3 seasons over 1,000 yards, like 1,300, 1,400 yards. And 1 year he rushed for 945, and he's their all-time leading rusher. He comes in at 6 foot 238. Now, he's been kind of a spot guy the last couple of years, not much playing time, some special teams. Had a couple of years in Denver early, but at 6 foot 238, he kind of fills the bill of a guy that you want to do some punishment inside the 5, right? And pick up that extra yardage there when things get tough. So I'm kind of excited about that signing. And it comes right after, as we were there on our way to Rams camp on Saturday morning, the Rams cut Sterling Weatherford, the UDFA, who had, a couple years ago was on their radar. He was signed by the Colts, ended up with the Bears, and the Rams picked him up after the Bears released him, but he failed his physical, and that's a bummer for him. He was put out in the street. Okay, so before I get into some of the stuff on the Rams camp experience that we saw, let's go around the NFL, just reading headlines, seeing different things we saw. I keep hearing that the Ravens offense is supposed to look like a video game this year in the hands of a master. And I kind of agree. I think the first month of the season, the first 6 weeks, I think everyone is going to be screaming Super Bowl in Baltimore and that Lamar Jackson's back and we told you he could pass the ball. And then week 7's going to hit and it's going to be kaboom. OBJ, he's brittle. Lamar Jackson's starting to become brittle. And that's where my enthusiasm for the Ravens is starting to wane, because those defenses aren't those old Raven defenses that we used to admire from afar. And so this offense has to stay together, but they haven't had the ability to stay together. And I think the pieces they added were nice, but Mark Andrews has worn tread on his tires. OBJ has a lot of worn tread on his tires. And so I think it'll be a great start. I think they could come out of the gates 5-1, and everyone's going to be going great. But then I just think the injuries are going to come. For the Vikings, Daniel Hunter's agreed to terms for this year. He's going to get 20 walks this year, and then it all starts up again in 2024. But he's going to make $20 million this year, so good for him. Quan Alexander signed with the Steelers. Now, Steeler fan Rob, who lives in Missouri, sends me this via text or Facebook Messenger or something. He sends it to me some way. He sends it to me as if, oh man, Quan Alexander, that's the missing piece. Really? Quan Alexander feels like he's been in the league since Bill Parcells. Played with Tampa, Frisco, the Saints, the Jets, and with the Steelers. And he's a good off-ball linebacker. Sometimes a little too good, maybe makes more money than he should, but he landed in Pittsburgh. So good for him. Dalvin Cook says it's likely that he'll sign with the Jets. So we'll see. That's some of that Aaron Rodgers money that got freed up. Jonathan Taylor, after all the kerfuffle there with his owner, Irsay and such, he wants out of Indy. And Irsay says, no, sorry, Jonathan, you're a running back. And I'm so grateful and thankful the Rams didn't make any investment in the idea of trying to acquire a running back. And I think if we know the Rams really, if you're really following this team, the McSnead era, they're not going to put a lot of effort into finding a running back. They did it once. They put their money into Todd Gurley, who just turned 30 the other day. He's been out of the NFL since 2019, and he just turned 30. Talk about how fast it ends. And after Todd Gurley, I don't think the Rams are ever going to put money into a running back like that again. It's been Sony Michel, it's been Darrell Henderson, it's been Cam Akers, and now we're going to see what Zach Evans and Kyrene Williams bring to the table, and maybe even Royce Freeman. News on Jalen Ramsey wasn't good. When we talked on Friday, Jalen Ramsey was either he's going to go in for surgery. They don't know if they're going to trim or they're going to sew or repair. And they had to do repair. And so he's out, not 6 weeks. He's out 6 months. They're saying that maybe he comes back in December. If I'm the Dolphins, I'm not rushing him, especially if when go down sometime in October. Don't rush Jalen Ramsey back. Everyone thinks it's going to be. Insurance policy. The Dolphins have signed Eli Apple, and the Rams are playing the Dolphins this year because I love a matchup with any Ram wide receiver against Eli Apple. Nothing new on the Nick Bosa front, not reporting to the 49ers. He's scheduled to make $8 million this year. He has a estimated value, according to Spot Track, of 28.6. And, they can find the money, but that really puts the 49ers in a tough spot, considering, they just did Debo and they're not paying anything to their quarterbacks yet. But that puts them in a tough spot. And I think it's great. I hope the 49ers give him the dough, and then they're in that squeeze as far as their salary cap. Or if he doesn't come back, what if he just holds out, right? He has a market. An edge rusher like him has a market, because edge rushers like Nick Bosa aren't a dime a dozen. And so he has the leverage a running back doesn't have. And speaking of that critical injury, I just saw this just before we went on. Broncos wide receiver Tim Patrick, who everyone has high hopes for, he was carted off the field with what they fear to be an Achilles injury. And can you imagine? He missed all of last year with a ruptured ACL or a torn ACL. And if he injures his Achilles, it's a ruptured Achilles this year. I mean, man, that's good night for a receiver. And I'm sure he could come back. Mike Sherrard, old UCLA guy, came back and had a career after a series of injuries when he broke into the NFL. But that's really a bad break for Tim Patrick. Okay, so let me take a drink here. As I said, we're doing a little different type of show today because I am on the road. As you can see, the background behind me is much different than what we usually have. Someone has clicked on, so say hi. Thank you so much for clicking on, guys. This is not the Ram Cave. This is my other gig. I'm at a camp in Creston, California, which is about 20 minutes east of Tascadero, which is north of San Luis Obispo. It is not the middle of nowhere. It's a really great camp, Granite Ridge, and I'm on the board, and I'm the director of Outsiders Ministry, the programming arm, which means I get to help oversee the putting together of kids camp, youth camp, family camp, man camp, female, ladies camp, all these different things, quiz camp, all these things we do. And it's just summer, and it's the busy time of year. But okay, we got that in so you understand the location I'm in if you're just clicking on. Let's look at Ram News. And I didn't put this in any particular order. I just did it as I saw it on Saturday. The first thing I want to say, I've been mocking everybody for saying, oh, that guy's the steal of the draft, right? Steve Avila is the steal of the draft. Puka Nacua is the draft. Zach Evans is the steal of the draft. THC is the steal of the draft. I was sharing, not everybody can be a steal of the draft. Well, after seeing guys play, I'm thinking, you know what? Maybe they are the steal of the draft. And we know it's t-shirts and shorts. It's 7-on-7 stuff against your own opponents. And then they did some full team scrimmaging. And so, but those guys looked real good, and we'll get to it. But the first one I want to get to, and I'm not the only one, listener S.A. Bob, that's not Santa Ana Bob, it's a different Bob, S.A. Bob, E-S-E, like a homie where I come from in El Monte. S.A. Bob, he was right there with me when we were talking about Kurt Sandoval being in the way, the KBC newscaster. He's inside the fence, right? And he parks it, and there are thousands of people here. The seats are all full. Everyone's trying to get close to the fences and see. And homeboy parks it with a friend who wasn't no small ride either, right in the corner of the end zone, and they're blocking the view of everybody. And all the next thing I heard was Kurt blanking Sandoval. Dude, get out of the way. And so I snapped a picture and I posted on our social media. But yeah, man, get out of the way. Bro, you got all access. Step to the side a little bit and let these fans watch the scrimmage go on. So yeah, so I don't know. Kurt Sandoval's cool, but at that moment when I heard S.A. Bob say Kurt blanking Sandoval, I thought it was funny. Okay, point number 2. Demarcus Robinson, who I was kind of slow your roll. I'm so sick of every time the Rams sign Tyler Johnson, Demarcus Robinson, Ahkello Witherspoon. Oh, they found this guy that's going to make all the difference. And we were so desperate for material during those times that we made every signing sound like it was this big deal, right? And I will say this, Demarcus Robinson looked really good. And he made some catches where he really battled to get the ball. And again, that was the distinction that I find between him and Van Jefferson. But he looked really good, Demarcus Robinson. And so, yeah, he definitely wouldn't surprise me if he made the team. The other one is Stetson Bennett. Stetson Bennett could be the steal of the draft, right? He's smaller than I thought. That dude is not big at all, but he does have an NFL arm. Maybe it's not Justin Herbert's arm, but he does have an arm, and it won't limit his success. And so I'm warming up more and more to Stetson Bennett. And so, I was upset. They drafted him 5th round, seemed early for me. I think it was 5th round. They took him and they grabbed him early because there was that run on those mid-range quarterbacks. The Sakes took Haener out of Fresno State, who the Rams apparently had targeted. So they decided they needed to get in there and grab Stetson Bennett. And you know what? Like always, for the most part, the McSnead beast knew what they were doing. Speaking of beasts, the number 4 thing I noticed was at left guard. I didn't see him line up at another position, and that dude's a beast. That dude is huge, and I definitely think he could be the steal of the draft, right? Steve Avila fits everything, that you would want, and you're hoping he stays healthy. You're hoping it translates to the field, but right now he looks really good. Okay, with Warren McClendon on the PUP list, or at least he was still on the PUP list on Saturday, there was someone that had to rotate with Rob Havenstein, and I really thought it was interesting. It was Logan Bruss. Logan Bruss, number 60, was going to be playing guard, and he was now he had just been spelling Havenstein, but no one else lined up at right tackle except for Logan Bruss outside of Havenstein, and that was interesting to see. Really hard to gauge because no one's really going after the quarterback in those situations. But just the fact that maybe Bruss might have some flexibility to fan out along the line of scrimmage was an interesting thing to see. At number 6, at left tackle, Joseph Noteboom and Alaric Jackson rotated. I think Noteboom was the first one out there, and then they kept rotating. The same with Coleman Shelton and Brian Allen. They kept rotating as well. I think Shelton did rotate over to right guard once or twice, but they were rotating at center. The kid, the undrafted free agent, is it Mike McAllister? He was in at guard when Avila rotated out. And then Tremaine Ankrum, he saw a lot of time at right guard. He saw the most time, I would think, at right guard. And he did get one or two reps at left guard. And I thought that was interesting because we've seen Alaric Jackson play guard for the Rams, and he was good at guard. And so the idea was, okay, maybe if Noteboom locks down left tackle, maybe Alaric Jackson is our right guard. And then you're running either Shelton or Allen at center, and then you're running Avila, the steal of the draft, Noteboom, and that offensive line looks pretty good. Either way, the offensive line to me seems like it does have a lot of depth right now. And so I feel really good about the Rams offensive line from here. Number 8, I didn't see Darian Kendrick on the field, and the cornerback, new number is number 1. And I didn't notice too much about Davis Allen, the tight end out of Clemson. He apparently has a little bit of a hamstring issue, and so he didn't suit up. So that means Davis Allen and Hunter Long are both kind of laid up right now. And it was interesting. Bryson Hopkins did get a lot of reps yesterday, along with Tyler Higbee, who's at 6'6", 255. The dude's a beast. Travius Hodges Tomlinson, the guy they said was the steal of the draft, that small corner, THT, he looked good. He made several plays. And I definitely see him being a contributor down the road. Number 10, Zach Evans, steal of the draft. Absolutely. He looked good running the football. And I'll say that about Kyrene Williams, and I'll say that about Cam Akers, and I'll talk about Cam Akers in a second. But Zach Evans did look really good, and he could end up, it would be interesting to see how everything plays out. If, does he end up second on the depth chart? If anything happens to Cam Akers, where does he fit in? But I think Zach Evans, if everything holds true to what looks like it is right now, the way it looks right now, Zach Evans is maybe the future of the Rams going forward. Stafford looked great. I thought Stafford looked really good. I thought he looked really healthy. No issues with his arms, and he threw some absolute pure passes. I mean, some passes that were just unbelievable. And people were getting all hyped up about Van Jefferson, and it sounds like I'm anti-Jefferson. I'm not. I just think there's limits. And Jefferson ran under a pass that Stafford threw, and it was literally, everyone said, "Oh, what a great catch!" And it was just a perfect pass that, and the 40-yard, 50-yard variety that Stafford threw. Later on, Jefferson threw a ball into the crowd, and it looked like WrestleMania 15 or whatever. These people were beating each other up for the ball. I wouldn't have minded catching a ball because I'd have shown it to you and bragged about it, but I didn't want to break anything trying to get the ball, so I was glad it happened away from me. Number 12, Aaron Donald was interesting. Just seeing Aaron Donald on the field, which I just didn't expect to see him on the field. He played some bully ball. He threw Cam Akers to the ground a couple of times. It seemed like it was all in jest, but it was like, on that field, it's Aaron Donald. He can do whatever he wants. And speaking of Akers did look good. There's that shot of him that we've seen where they talk about him putting on the weight he put on. And I don't know. It didn't seem like it slowed him down on the field. In fact, that added muscle is probably going to help him. And I'm personally hoping we just pound the ball to Cam Akers as much as we can. Cam Akers getting 250 to 300 carries this year would be a good thing, I think. And Puka Nacua, all right, he could be the steal of the draft. He fits the suit. The highlight of Bennett throwing him the ball is, yes, it was a good catch. There's a touchdown pass that you see in the highlights that are out there. But let's go back to Stetson Bennett, and it was a fantastic throw by Stetson Bennett. And I understand everyone's winning the Super Bowl in July. We understand that, but we also understand that we're in the golden age of Ram football right now in terms of winning, going to win. We got ownership management and coach all seems to line up. It's not a good coach with bad ownership. We also have a quarterback. So everything is stacked up right now. And so you can't help but feel optimistic. You do want to see what happens with the defense. Robert Rochelle was one of the starters out there on defense. Sean Jolly got a lot of reps as well. Like I said, we were on the look for Darian Kendrick, and I didn't see him. Russ East was out there, Quentin Lake. So Byron Young, And it was hard to judge the edge guys because the edge guys, you're not really going to go after the quarterback at this point. But so we'll see as we get closer to the start of preseason. Okay, so I am up in a hotter climate. Took a drink. This is my official camp mug. That's me when my hair was a different color. Let's go to the Kistler Law trivia question of the day. And it is a kind of a simple one. We all know Kevin Greene was in the Hall of Fame. We all know Kevin Greene was drafted by the Rams. We all know that he was in Auburn. But how did the Rams acquire Kevin Greene? Or actually, how did the Rams acquire the draft pick to take Kevin Greene? And that's the trivia question of the day. How did the Rams acquire the draft pick to acquire Kevin Greene? There you go. We'll give you the answer at the end of the show. Commercial, I'm Joe Tarosian, 21 years as a sports writer. I get to do RamView now. I get to write books. My books are on Amazon. Type in Joe Tarosian on Amazon. I've written 2 high school football novels that were well received, as well as several other books of a Christian variety that are novels. You could read them, and by doing RamView and writing books, it allows me to do my day job, which is I pastor a small church in Burbank called Burbank Faith Naz, and we're right here on YouTube. It's another channel we have, Burbank Faith Virtual, and you can follow us there if you feel like it or you're interested. I would ask again if you could hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, follow us on Spotify as we build our footprint here. And I just want to do good for my sponsors, Kistler Law, Temple City Auto, and of course, Granite Ridge, located in the great state of Creston. Okay. On this date in Ram history, in 2020, the aforementioned Kevin Greene passed away, which was really tragic. Kevin Greene is one of the most beloved players in history of the NFL. Played 15 seasons, 8 with the Rams, registered 160 sacks. In the 232 games that he could have played in, he played in 228. And get this, in the last 4 years of his career, he registered 14 and a half, 10 and a half, 15 and 12 sacks. Even in the 15th year of his career in Carolina, he registered those sacks. He was acquired by the Rams, 5th round, 113th overall in 1985 out of Auburn. And of course, the trivia question today is, how did the Rams get that 5th round draft pick? And we'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, quick look at week 18 of this season. Right now, we have the Rams at 9-7. I gave them a victory in New York in the Big Apple on New Year's Eve. And now, at a 9-7 record, now they got to go to Frisco in week 18, January 7th, 2023. And we know how those things work out. I could be signed to play quarterback for the 49ers, and I could probably beat the Rams just because that's the kind of hold that Kyle Shanahan seems to have on this Rams team in the regular season. It would be interesting to see where the 49ers are at, because I think they do have some quarterback issues. I think, after 7 weeks last year, by the time Brock Purdy is ready to play this year, and he looks like he's a full go, I think at some point, now that there's film on him, the league's going to catch up with him. The league caught up with Lamar Jackson. I mean, Lamar Jackson is still a great player, but you haven't seen a repeat of 2019 because they know how to contain him. And everyone has weaknesses, and weaknesses that other defenses seem to figure out. So far, the Rams defense doesn't seem to figure out these efficient quarterbacks with that just nickel and dime you down the field. Hopefully, Raheem Morris will figure that out this year. The 49ers are moving off Garoppolo, Mike McGlinchey, Jimmy Ward, Samson Ebukam. They acquired Javon Hargrave from Philadelphia. That was their big signing. But of course, right now, as of July 31st, 2023, Nick Bosa is not there. And Nick Bosa wants his dough. And I'm going to list off some names here: Hargrave, Eric Armstead, Bosa, of course, Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, Chavarius Ward, who had a great year last year, Talanoa Hufnega, Tashawn Gibson, who had a bounce-back year, but he's in his 12th season. He's turning 33. Can he repeat that? And they drafted Jair Brown in the 3rd round out of Penn State. and they wasted a draft pick on a kicker who apparently they like. It's just hard to call. I think the Rams are going to play their best football in the back half of the season, but I think they're going to drop this one because it's Frisco, and I think they're going to finish the regular season 9-8. And we talked about it. 7 wins is the low end, 10 wins is the high end, and 9 wins I think is very feasible for the Rams, especially as we've just covered this schedule, just looking at the defenses they're going to face. And I don't have a problem with the Rams offense playing against this defense because I think this defense is going to be worn down by the time we get to week 18. That's just 49er football that is very physical, and they all start falling apart. We see this every year, but I do have a problem with the 49ers offense going against the Rams defense, and hopefully there are some adjustments in the offing for this Rams defense as we get headed into the 2023 season. So the Rams finished 9-8, which again, in a weak NFC, 9 wins puts you in the conversation for a wild card spot. It's a very weak NFC. So there we go. I do not have my stone groove, but let's go to the Kistler Law trivia question of the day. Let's get that answer in as we hit the 26-minute mark. Kevin's 1984 trade with the Buffalo Bills. The Rams sent wide receiver Preston Denard to the Buffalo Bills on August 1st, 1984, for a 5th-round draft pick in 1985, and that 5th-round draft pick turned into Kevin Greene. Now, if you're a Ram fan with a long history, you'll remember that Denard was an undrafted free agent signed by the Rams in 78. He went to one of the New Mexico schools, New Mexico State, special team player, but all the injuries that occurred in 79, he really rose up the charts, and he became one of the if not the top receiver, the best receiver on that Ram team in 1979 that ended up going to Super Bowl 14 that Eddie Brown ruined with his performance, but we won't talk about that. We've already talked about it. And Greene was a consistent receiver for the Rams from 79 through 83, and he's a possession type. He had good hands, and then it was kind of sad to see him traded because it was a nice run he had with the Rams. But think about that. An undrafted free agent in 78, signed by Don Klosterman, was shipped off to Buffalo, and a year later, the Rams drafted a future Hall of Famer. And the only bummer is that Kevin Greene didn't spend all 15 years with the Rams, but why rehash Georgia, Shaw, and the move to St. Louis? We'll bring that up some other time. Okay, that is RamView for this July 31st, 2023. I've people outside the windows of this studio, Outsiders Studio in Creston, California. And so they want back in here. I got to go. I got to get back to work. God bless. Take care. Thank you so much for the support. It really is great encouragement. And we will see you guys on Wednesday. Take care.